Greetings, Earthling. So, we're talking about the most famous tavern in the world today. Winter is coming, and so we have a special winter beer today. And coming from the most famous tavern in the world, which is the Hofbräuhaus in Munich. So, what do you do actually? As you can see, the nice Munich winter scenery on the label. So, what do you do when a guy called Albrecht Füracker is your boss? Don't know? Never mind. You work for the Bavarian state. Actually, Albrecht Füracker, good name, is head of the Ministry of Finance and Homeland, Heimat in Germany, which is a very emotionally loaded word in German. What does that have to do with beer? You're asking. Rightly so. Is this ministry, that is the supreme supervisor of the state Hofbräuhaus Munich, because this brewery belongs to the state of Bavaria. It is state-owned. Münchner Hofbräuhaus beer is exported to over 40 countries in the world and is brewed in some more countries under license, for example, in China, Hungary, and the US. But it's not really new that this beer is internationally sold. In 1902, there has been a Hofbräuhaus in New York, which had to close in 1923 because of the prohibition. However, wherever you go today, if it's Chicago, Dubai, Belo Horizonte, or Las Vegas, the beer from Bavaria is already there and it waits for you. Cold if you're lucky. And don't forget, the Bavarian state earns with every zip you take. How could this all happen? Let me tell you, in the middle of the 16th century, the Wittelsbachers, which were the owners of Bavaria, the later kings of Bavaria, imported their beer from northern Germany, from a place called Einbeck, to be precise, the most famous brewery of the world. At this time, they imported all over the world. They exported all over the world from Einbeck, but the beer was expensive. It was a luxury good. So the Wittelsbachers thought about it and said, we can do that on our own, and built their first Hofbräuhaus in Munich in 1589. While only originally delivering to the court, the beer became popular and they were starting to sell it to other people. But, however, it was not Einbecker. So in 1614, it was possible to copy the popular Einbeck Bock beer with the help of product piracy or industrial espionage. And so they started making their own brand of Bock beer. Bock beer, which basically means Einbecker beer, was invented in Einbeck, a small place where everybody was basically brewing and selling it all over the world, the known world back then. However, they were brewing this beer now at the Hofbräuhaus and selling it too, and made good money out of it. So it came that they had the sole privilege for brewing and selling this beer for the next round about 200 years. Think about that. When Bavaria became a kingdom in 1806, it became the Royal Hofbräuhaus. Therefore, it got the little crown there because it was the king's own brewery. But it was not only a beer supplier, but also a nice source of income, as it turned out, because the beer became more popular and more popular. It was actually so successful there was always trouble with the other breweries in town. Around the Revolution, in the midst of the 19th century, the back then king, Maximilian II, decided to sell the brewery to the Bavarian state to get rid of the trouble. His son Ludwig built some nice castles from that money, but that's another story. However, the Hofbräuhaus is an historical site for many reasons. On Palm Sunday, April the 13th, 1919, Workers' Council and Soldiers' Council proclaimed the first communist republic in the ballroom, or the main room of the Hofbräuhaus. About a year later, in 1920, the basically unknown German Workers' Party renamed itself in the same place to the National Socialist German Workers' Party. A guy named Adolf Hitler, back then very unknown, was a speaker at this evening. I think you know the rest. The Hofbräuhaus was nearly destroyed in the Second World War, and after the war rebuilt. And of course, there was beer to be drunken. And the Hofbräuhaus sold lots of it and got successful. And the presence of American soldiers who appreciated the beer certainly didn't hurt and put some money in the register. As the beer got more and the brewery got more successful at the end of the 80s, the business began to internationalize. With a franchise business at the end of the 90s, things got exciting. As a state-owned company, the brewery was not able to get as active on site as it is known from other companies. You know, they couldn't take money and spend it at the place. So basically, if you're the franchisee, if that's the correct word, on site, you have basically to bear all the risks if you want to open a Hofbräuhaus. Plus the fact that there's a manual that regulates about everything, how this Hofbräuhaus, this little place, has to look like in the inside, on the outside, and how it has to be run. Obviously, there's still much money to get made of. So, because there is, as I said, Hofbräuhauses, for example, in Dubai. Fun fact is that the only real copy of the Hofbräuhaus in Munich is the one in Las Vegas. Everything from roof tiles to chairs was imported from Germany to get built up there. The franchisees are only allowed to brew beer like certain standard beers from the Hofbräuhaus, like the original or whatever. Special beers like this one, if they are available at all, are imported. You know, in Germany there's a discussion going on about how the state is not the better entrepreneur. So the state basically should keep out of any matter, not being an entrepreneur at all. However, it looks different with beer. While beer sales are falling, the first half of 2020, as the German Brewer Union says, by 16%, the state-owned breweries like Rothaus, Weihenstephan and Hofbräu have increasing numbers for years now. Could it be that you can brew better beer if the focus is not on maximizing on profit of the shareholders? Just a thought. Fun fact, by the way, the State Ministry for Science and Art is responsible for the Weihenstephan State Brewery, while the State Hofbräuhaus, as I said, is the subordinate to the Bavarian Ministry of Finance and Home Affairs. Don't ask me. In this sense, private entrepreneurs before state is obviously not always and all the time the most successful solution. But let's get to the beer today. The Hofbräu Winterzwickel is, as the name suggests, a seasonal beer. The winter landscape on the beer does the rest, I guess. You know, winter is a likely season for darker beer, you know, and they don't have to be, they tend to be a little more tasty and sometimes have a little more alcohol. So a lot of times you don't have to drink them as cold as you would drink beer in the summer because of the taste. The term Zwickel actually comes from the tab on the barrel. When the master brewer took a sample from the barrel, he used the Zwickel. So the Zwickel beer was originally the test, like tasting the beer, what it tastes like. Nowadays, it basically describes a cellar beer. A cellar beer that the association of big barrels down in the cellar where you open a tap and put it in a mug. That's what it's supposed to be. It's usually not filtered and it's ungespundet. Don't ask me what this is in English. So it basically means on the big barrel there's a hole up there for the air to go out, and it's not closed. So it usually doesn't have as much, air in the beer as other beers do. As you can see, the color, it's not filtered, so it's maybe a little copperish or brown. It has a good head. Nice foam there coming up. And the smell is, it's like malt, dark malty naturally. Slightly toasted, a little bit like toasted bread. And if you drink it, it has caramel malt in it, but only a slight taste of caramel, really a slight taste. It's malty naturally, with a hint of chocolate and a little, with a little taste of bread in your mouth. If you ask me for a rating, it's thumbs up, good news. It's about 2.5 out of 5. It tends to get a little bitter at the end. It's not a beer which you want to drink, like in a hurry. That's not a good choice. However, it's totally drinkable. It has about 5.5% alcohol, so that's a German, more or less regular. So, and before I leave you, don't forget Markus Söder, the Prime Minister of Bavaria, thanks you personally for drinking the beer. And with that thought in mind, I wish you a good day. Bye-bye.